Hi, guys, welcome back to Hear Our Voices podcast. We are in the new beautiful month of May, and I just want to say thank you for coming this far with us. So, today we don't have a particular episode of story, but we are going to give out some resources, information that can be helpful to families in New York City. I'm sorry, most of our stuff are based in New York City, but the stories can come from anywhere. So let's get some other things out the way. So if you want to follow us, you can follow us on TikTok. You can follow us on Instagram. You can follow us on Facebook, and you can follow us on here and also YouTube. So if you're hearing this message and you would like to see what we have entailed for before and see what we have entailed, I would say for the future, you should definitely follow us, and so you could be able to get all the updates that we have. We are on Instagram heavily, sorry. And we're also on Twitter heavily. We do a lot of updates about jobs or just different clips about the podcast if you didn't get to listen to it yet. But I do post a lot of things on the stories. Sometimes I put it on our main page. I also want to tell you, if you're a person who has a story, so the requirements to be on this podcast are if you have resources that could help people in shelter, right? That's one of the ways you could be on the podcast. Or if you're a person who doesn't want to particularly be on the podcast, but if you have resources in Spanish and in English, if you have it in one language only, it's fine. We could translate a little bit so we can get people to understand what's going on, what they have. But you know that New York City has a lot of migrants who has been coming in, and so they really need things was primarily for their language so they can understand it. I know most websites have the translation. So yes. So if you're a person like that who has resources, if you want to be on the podcast, it's fine. If you don't want to be on the podcast, it's okay also. So another way that you could be on the podcast and talk to me and get interviewed by me or Lorden is two ways. We do a Spanish, we do an English podcast. The Spanish only goes once a month on the fourth Wednesday of the month. So the other 3 days of the month I do in particular, and that's the English speaking podcast. And if you're a person who's a family and who was in a family shelter in the USA, we would love to hear your story about how you became homeless, how you got out of homelessness, and how you're doing now. No matter what part of the stage you are in, if you're still in the shelter right now, we can have you on a podcast and we could keep you anonymous. You don't have to show your face if you don't want to. It's all up to you and what you're okay with sharing and things like that. So if you're a person, again, I feel like a lot of people think that, oh my gosh, to be homeless, you only have to go to a shelter or live on the street. You could be couch surfing, which is mean going to friends and family's homes and sleeping on their couch. That considers as homeless. And also if you've been housing insecure, evictions, or like certain things like that, we also can have you on the podcast. If you're a person who does a philanthropy work, things like that, we would love to have you on the podcast to see how you're helping people in the homeless sector with money and helping them with getting things changed and helping them change the world, basically. So if you're any of those peoples, any of those positions, we would love you to have you on the podcast. And if you have a person in your organization who can speak Spanish, we would love to have that perspective also, because we do want to fill both slots with information that could help the people of New York City and of the world, because the people listen to me all over the place. So yes. So as you may know, last year we have a fellows group with Family Homeless Coalition, which is the people who are in charge of this podcast. I know people think it's just me, talking, but there's a team definitely helping behind the scenes with many different areas of the podcast. And we made a resource packet last year, and now we're trying to update it to have Spanish speaking resources. That's why we need, people to send things in so we could be able to put on both of the resource packets. So, if you look on the resource packet, it's usually in almost all our podcasts. Sometimes I don't even announce it because I'm not going to lie to you, I do forget about it. I shouldn't, because we work so hard on it. So I should never forget about it, right? Because it's very important. And a lot of people need these resources. So if you go at the bottom of the thing, I'm going to read a few of them so you can understand, or just read a category so you can understand a little bit about what resources we might have. And certain places have a lot of different resources. I think home bases in general encompass a lot of things. Also, if I want to say this right now, if you have a problem with your shelter, like not getting heat, hot water, cold water, water in general, bad plumbing, rats, roaches, I honestly, even though sometimes I feel like it takes forever, but usually when you call 311, they get on their toes, and they really end up doing what they need to do for the clients. Because not because you don't have a place to live means that you should be living in shambles either. So just be mindful of that. 311 can be a friend. They don't like when you call them, but, well, the shelter, I should say, don't like when you call them. But 311 is there to help you kind of be your advocate if you can't be an advocate for yourself. Even when you're being an advocate for yourself, because of everything happening, it can get, not listened to. But when somebody's on their back from the city, sometimes they kind of listen much better. So we work very hard on this as a team. So it's if you could look in the link, it'll be in the link tree down below. It says resources for families with children experiencing homelessness. I want to say right now, we do focus on family homelessness, which means a child under 18 in the shelter with an adult. But a lot of these resources can be used for families or for regular people, like single people, so you don't have to be family for some of these things. Some of these things you don't even have to you could be undocumented for some of them. Some of them you have to be documented for. So if you just go through the resource packet, we have a table of contents. The first one is children's programs, after school domestic violence, which is a big thing, educational, financial services like credit repair and things like that. Food is a big one because a lot of people are, they don't have food. I go to pantries sometimes to get myself. So even though I'm living in Niger, and if I want to add a little extra stuff to say, especially now because food costs so much money, you can definitely go to places to get different pantries. Furniture, some people give out new furniture, used furniture, things like that as your preference. You just have to go through them, and by each category it has labels like a number of, for example, children and programs has like 3. That means there's 3 resources in that particular segment. So you'll go through that and see what can honestly help you and your family. We hope that these things can help you. Another thing is health services, including mental health and behavioral health. When you're in a shelter, sometimes you go in with not saying no problem, because being in the shelter alone is going to PATH and being in the shelter, or going to a DV center is by itself is stressful. But you go in there basically okay. By the time you leave, you kind of you get depression, you get this. If you wasn't pregnant, if you was pregnant before, you got pregnant in the shelter, postpartum, it can be a lot of different things. And sometimes you need somebody to talk to who's not particularly in the shelter, because sometimes you don't feel safest there. You can get outside help to help you, right? Homeless prevention, housing, Human Resources Association, basically HRA welfare, right? We have DHS prevention, different numbers and centers for that. And we have Spanish speaking resources, right there. Legal services. A lot of people need legal services. You might need things for your kids. You might need things for yourself. Sometimes you just don't know exactly where to go. We have self-care. Self-care is honestly under mental health. If your mind is not right, sometimes your self can drop apart. But if we give you these resources, I hope that you kind of you don't have to use every single one, right? You can use what you need for you and your family to really get better. They also have stuff for vouchers. So you look, just as I said, the link will be down below. It'll be a regular link for the resources, and it'll also be a link for the link tree. So if you want to follow us on any other, any other platform. And we hope that this thing definitely help you to be able to help you and your family get to be in a better place. And some of these services are prevention. Some of these services are basically prevention from going into shelter. Some of these services are when you're in shelters, because, like, example, vouchers, you can only get certain vouchers when you're in the shelter. But some, like one I can think of on the top of my head, you can get if you just are in the community, which is FEPS. So it all depends on what you need for your family, and other things is aftercare. I feel like they don't have as much aftercare services, but we take what we can get, until they build a system a little bit better. But this resource packet is really to help you get things that you need. So I know a lot of times they have, like, especially in New York City compared to other states, they have so many things that can help a family or a person out. And because people don't know about it or know where to go and making sure they have updated information, that's one thing too. You go to a lot of these organizations, they don't have updated information about what is actually out there. We try our best to make sure that all these resources that we give out to you guys are updated and with proper phone numbers, proper links, and things like that. So thank you for listening. If you got to this end of this podcast thus far, I thank you so much. I was gonna read out certain things, but I think reading the title so you can know exactly what we have in store for you can be a help too. So if you want to go on that link, go down below. And you know what? I'll talk to you next time. See you next week, guys. Bye.